Hi friends, it's Annie from Annie's Pink Chair, where we bring real, raw, relevant issues to the table from a woman's perspective with wit and wisdom. Last week, we had Victor and Eileen with us from All Things Possible Ministries, an incredible story of two people coming together, loving each other, and actually doing ministry in the midst of a crazy time right now. We right now in our world have a major problem. It's called trafficking. And this ministry addresses it. Not only that, it goes into the deep, dark alleyways, different countries, and helps people become free from being trafficked. So welcome my friends, Victor and Eileen. Victor and Eileen, part 2. I couldn't get enough of you guys. We all know it's the same day, but I mean, come on.
Hey,
just
right. It's like sitting down in your living room.
So
and
easy.
I know. It's like, it's so engaging. Just everything that you both shared. And if no one has watched it or heard it, you need to go back right now, pause what you're listening to now and go back, because they have a story to tell about their relationship and how they met and how they honored each other. Now, I wanted to actually talk about today the whole reason why you were actually teaching, Victor. Why were you teaching martial arts? I mean, what's behind this? Because obviously, as a child, you were very, very bullied and abused, even by your own parent, right?
Yeah. So I mean, as a kid, when my mom got pregnant with me, the night she got pregnant, my biological dad straddled her and shoved rosary beads down her throat and put a pistol to her head. And that's from both of them, and telling me this many years later. But my dad didn't claim me. My mom would end up marrying 6 times. I went to 14 schools, lived in, I think, 17, 18 different houses. And so I grew up very insecure. And then on top of that, I was abused as a kid, but horribly by a stepfather, to where it moved from sexual abuse into torture. So I know as a child what it's like to be electrocuted, dunked in water to your unconscious.
Wow.
Just evil. And I never focus on that, but I just tell people enough to go, whoever you are and whatever you've suffered, you're not alone in it. And I do think it was a catalyst for me to start martial arts, because as a kid, for instance, my stepfather put me in a chair and held a gun to my head. I was 7 years old. And I remember him tapping it to the side of my head. And he kept saying, if you ever tell anybody what I've done to you, I'll kill you and tell the police you shot yourself. And he could have, and I believed it. So as a child, I fantasized about being this really capable martial artist, so what's the Bruce Lee stuff and the Chuck Norris.
Right.
But I ultimately became and still hold the world record for the fastest gun disarm, which is when somebody puts a pistol to my head with a hammer back, finger on the trigger, I could disarm them, pull out the magazine, and point the weapon back at them in 0.8 of a second. That's the standing record.
That sounds like a revenge on Satan right there. Boom.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Definitely driven. So I started teaching martial arts after I got on the Marine Corps, and that's how we started developing a relationship.
How did the Marine Corps, affect your trauma? Because obviously you go into that place wanting to, becomes more or less like a superhero in a way, because Marines, we all know they're superheroes, right?
Right?
You can't get away from it. Like, they keep our country safe and free and all that. So, I mean, how did that affect you? Did you get triggered at all while you were in the Marine Corps?
I think I did, but it was a way for me to direct my anger and to gain skill. So
Right.
a person, I hear people say, he's got an anger problem. I go, well, put him in the Marine Corps. We'll see how long he has a anger problem, or put him in a ring.
Right.
Because
we'll channel it.
that's what I'm talking about. You channel anger, and sometimes people have very good reasons to be angry. And but I just ask, I've dealt with so many kids who are incarcerated over the last gosh, almost 20 years. And I would just say, you seem angry. And, well, that's what they say. And I go, well, it sounds like you have a right to be. But what do you do with it? When you've suffered injustice, you are angry. And there are some people watching this right now that struggle with anger. And it's like, hey, why don't you pause, look back at your life, consider why you're angry, and then consider what are you going to do. Because look at me. You can learn martial arts all you want. You can become a champion. You can hold world records or become successful or whatever. The anger still won't go away. Right. It's fueled you or driven you oftentimes to a place where you can't even enjoy life. And I'm talking not only from personal experience, but from people we've reached and helped, from actors, Emmy Award winner, generals in the Pentagon, special operations guys. It's the whole gambit. So we are really about what we do is helping people get free. Yes, we've rescued and recovered women and children from ISIS. We've recovered and helped girls who've been kidnapped and abused, children who were sex trafficked. We've made pedophiles pay a price, from jail to prison to natural consequences. But freedom of the heart is actually the most important thing. And there's only one person that can do it, as we understand
Amen.
it. And
come on.
Jesus.
That's so good. You know, and you said pedophiles, Victor, and I want to ask you a question, and I know this is maybe something you've dealt with, obviously, and you probably have such a heart for this as well, and I'm sure Eileen does too. What about the bullies? What about the pedophiles? What about the traffickers? What about the pimps, the abusers? Where is their redemption? Because obviously what was done to them, they're now doing to someone else. Or something's happened to them where it's switched into another vein of a type of abuse. And maybe they weren't trafficked themselves, or maybe they weren't sexually abused, but now they're doing it to someone else because their anger has gotten so bad that now this is what it's resulted in.
Well, I'll speak first into it. You know, my father was a pimp and a drug dealer. And yet I never pimped anybody.
Right.
And I didn't sell drugs, I used them. Let me just say this. I believe anybody can be redeemed by the power of God. I don't care who they are. Trafficker, pimp, drug dealer, the worst pedophile, serial killers. Anybody can be redeemed. The question is, will they repent?
Yes.
Will they humble themselves? Do they want it? And some people aren't. Some people are wicked and they do not want redemption. And, you know,
and that's the sad part. That's very sad.
Very sad. Because, I mean, Jesus said he didn't come to condemn the world, but to save it.
That's right.
But yet, the balance of Scripture is God's wrath is being stored up against the unrepentant, the wicked. So people should fear God with the reverence of eternal damnation, but they should run to him as a loving father who can redeem them out of everything. And so we've seen it. We've seen and helped. We have a friend who, you know, had done horrible things. We got a lot of friends who have, and seen God redeem them and their lives change. Then we have other people who, I'll give you an example. I was face to face with an ISIS fighter in Mosul. Eileen was there as well. She was at the safe house. And I've been face to face with a number of ISIS people because of what we do. And I have, on occasion, had to make decisions that said, these young men, these teenagers, they're worth saving.
Yeah.
Even though they aligned themselves with ISIS because they were conscripts, they were
right.
It'll be a lot of healing and trauma, and we got to reverse this mindset of evil. Right. And then I've looked at other people and said, that person, no, he'll try to cut my head off the moment you cut him free.
It's sure do
enough,
or die. Yep. It's do or die.
We've seen it.
I
We've
mean,
seen it where I was
I
praying for an ISIS
yeah,
commander.
absolutely.
And,
You know, and I love the vulnerability and the honesty, because, you know, we people want to say that, well, Christians should just let everybody come to the table. Of course, you know, Jesus wants everyone to come to the table, but like you said, the key is repentance and admittance and a surrender, so to speak, of what they are doing to stop it and to want a change in their life, right? But if they're coming for your head, like you said, they're going to come cut off your head. It's you or them. I'm sorry. They're not cutting my head off. And obviously you're still here. So, hey.
Some people got their feelings hurt. It wasn't me.
Well, I want to share a story that Victor has shared many, many times about forgiving. And his father, who did the worst to him, and I know there are listeners, people watching you, who've been abused by a family member or someone who's supposed to protect them. And I think people who get into this realm, they may believe that they can never be forgiven, so they don't even try. So
Right.
I watched God use Victor in this man's life, his stepfather's life, to show, yes, you have done horrible things to me, but Victor was able to show him the love of God. And because of that, this man was free.
Wow.
So it is, you know, it takes the work of the Holy Spirit in the person to be able to say, I need to forgive you. And then it takes the Holy Spirit to be able to tell the person who's done such horrible things to people that you can be forgiven on this side of heaven, if they will receive it. And again, it's repentance and forgiveness.
Right, right.
Now, you know, Annie, on that same vein is, I think I'm living proof that, you know, you can forgive anybody.
Right.
I mean, I've forgiven ISIS fighters who want to kill me. I've forgiven people who abused me as a kid. But here's the deal. It doesn't mean I trust them. Doesn't mean I'll be reconciled in a relationship with them, because I firmly believe in justice. So even though a person can be forgiven, and I can actually even show my enemy love, they still may have to pay a price for decisions that they made. And
Right.
I've seen people who were vile and wicked have their lives transformed, and still with great courage and sincerity of heart and fruits of repentance have said, God has freed me, but I must still face the consequences for the choices I made.
Absolutely.
And I've said,
yeah.
yep, you do.
That's so good, because God is a God of justice, and don't get God twisted, because he will get the justice. And we know that Jesus came for, if we do repent, his blood covers everything. But there are consequences, just like a physical body. Like I have to pay my consequences, you know, for anything that I did prior to coming to Christ fully and surrendering. Any bad things that my body had to endure, I'm still paying the price for that, Victor and Eileen, I am. But I know that God is good, and a majority of it, he's healed. And he's given me a new lease on my life as far as my health. Like I'm not perfect, but I'm going to tell you, I'm happy where God has me right now. I wanted to ask, you know, the journey that you had to Jesus. Like, what did that look like? And then the starting of All Things Possible.
Right. Well, thanks for asking that, because I mean, I don't know if there's a better thing we can find out about another person than their journey to faith. And for me, you know, I knew Jesus was always real. Even as a little child, I knew he was real. When I was locked in the cooler and left for dead, it was such a real presence with me.
Wow.
You know, even to the point when I remember just, you know, I passed out because it was so cold. But I remember feeling a felt presence next to me. And I know that was the Lord. When there was time I'd be beat, you know, and I really later understood that Christ was there with me taking the beating. So I knew he was real, but still there's this level of trust. Can I trust and surrender my life? So, you know, after everything kind of endured, and I was trying to become a man. That's all I wanted to be, if I could just become a man. Because innately, even with all the sexual perversion going on today, every young man, even if he's effeminate, even if he's trans or gay, there's something in him that wants to be a warrior. It's put in there.
Yes.
And I had a friend who was gay, and we were cutting up one day, and I said something funny, and he's laughing kind of in a fembot voice, right? But he's got a deep voice, and he slaps me on my back like
Like a dude. Yeah.
like a dude. I turned and looked and said, "You do that again, I'm gonna hit you back." And he goes, "What do you mean? Why would you say that?" I go, "Dude, you're stinking 6 foot, plus. You hit like a lumberjack. I'm in karate, but man, when you hit me, you may think you're a little woman, but you a big old man." And you know what he said? He goes, "Really? You think I'm like a lumberjack?" I said, "Yeah, dude." I said, "Put some bass in your voice and quit acting feminine. You'll see, you're a big old man." And he literally loved being around us because I affirmed him as a man, right? So
Right.
it's in, man. And I'll tell you, I joined the Marine Corps, did all I was supposed to do, hated Arabs, the Beirut bombing had just happened. And yet at the end of that, man, I could fight, I could drink, and I could chase skirt. And that was the definition of a man.
Right.
But I remember going, I've met some women who are gay that could fight as good as me, drink more than me, and get more skirt than me. So how can that be the definition of a man, right? I'm like,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And that's when my biological dad wrote me a letter, and he said, "Hey, I've never been your dad." And he apologized, and he said, "I know you think I'm crazy." I'm like, "Yeah, you spent time in a mental hospital, the same one my grandfather died in, your dad." And he goes, "But I've surrendered my life to Jesus." And I remember going, what's the angle? This guy was a former drug dealer and pimp. And I mean, not long before that, he was a practicing warlock. So I just thought, what is the angle? I didn't trust him, but I took leave of absence, went down, visited him. And here's this guy, nose flat. Mine stays, his stays flat, mine pops up, but he just goes, "Victor, I don't know. I surrendered my life to the Lord, and I'm not perfect, but I can feel the direction of my life has changed." And it was him inviting me to church that I heard the simple message, which is Christianity. It's all simple. I mean,
Yes.
It's Jesus dying on the cross. He loves you. He's come to reconcile you to the Father. You just put your trust in him. Repent. Turn from what you know is wrong. He'll show you the other things you don't even think are wrong. You'll get a chance to say, "Oh, that's it." Follow him. I am almost fed up to hear with modern cultural Christianity, even the extensive teaching of the Bible that oftentimes just make a person so self-righteous.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and more confused.
Right. The Bible, and yet, you're struggling with porn and judging other people. It's like, just be real.
It's really sad, and I like that you said that, because, and of course, even suicide. Like, we've seen pastors commit suicide in the pulpit. They didn't tell anyone that they were struggling, and so Christianity needs to be real.
Real and
we need
simple.
to really live it.
Yeah, love one another, love our enemy. When we blow it, if people struggle, tell somebody. Yeah,
Right.
I spoke at a men's conference, and there was about 4,000 men there. And I said, this whole porn deal, I said, I'm sick of hearing how everybody's struggling with porn. I said, your issue isn't porn. Your issue is you like to masturbate. Okay, you use porn to do it. So stop with it. You can hear a pin drop, and a couple of guys chuckle. I was like, was that too real for y'all? Is that, come on. And
absolutely. Yeah. And so they chuckled, and then what happened?
Well, I said, I'll probably never get invited back here, but at least I'm speaking truth, fellas. And I actually did get invited back. But it's we give too much power to this porn deal,
I love what you said about the masturbation. It's really not about so much the picture of it and the watching of it, but it's the self the self medication, basically.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
the
it's-
self masturbation is it's a selfish thing because our needs aren't being met, so we try to meet them ourselves, right? And we could get them met, but we're not willing to do what it takes to get them met, right?
Right. And that's why we talk about in marriage, man, be willing to serve one another, open, loving, so that Eileen tells women, don't set your man up for failure. Yeah. Like when I travel, it's funny. The first time I heard her tell a women's audience, she's like, I love my man up. I love him up. Good. Because I don't want to
Especially
think about
before he
anybody
travels.
else. Yes.
Especially.
It's like we don't have to, this isn't rocket science. And then men, it's like, gosh, guys, quit trying to. And even the best definition I've heard of a man using a prostitute is simply he's masturbating inside of her. There is no love. He's using
Absolutely.
her. And it's like, just when you think of it in terms as real, and I tell people about porn, I go, dudes, I know people in the porn industry, right? If they put you, there you are looking at it, if they put you on the set in there with the lights on you and say, go, your private would shrivel up. You'd crawl off the set and go, okay, this isn't what I thought. I go, of course it's not.
I'm sorry, but that's hilarious. And you're absolutely right about that. They will be frozen. They'll be frozen, not able to do anything. So
Right.
It's so awesome. So you came to Jesus and surrendered. Your paternal, biological father told you about
Biological dad.
Jesus, and
Yep.
then your journey started, right, with the Lord. And then all of a sudden, what? Like,
Full
what started the
throttle.
ministry part?
Well, I mean, I got saved and I felt called, and the Lord showed me I'd be an evangelist. Now it looks different. And I tried regular church for a while and I was horrible at it. I mean, trust you me, a little bit too wild. But I thank God for the believers in the church that just affirmed me and loved me and said, oh, you'll be good. Just find your niche. And you know what? When we started All Things Possible, I did my martial arts career, got invited to go work in a really solid ministry. At the time, it was with Dr. James Dobson.
Oh, Dr.
And-
James Dobson.
Yeah, so I was actually an assistant to Dr. Dobson back in '01. And
Wow. So 20 years
So-
ago.
yeah, 20 years ago. And after a few years being there, someone asked me to share my story, which I'd never told the full story. And we were in a small group, and I shared, and it was actually the gay couple. I call them the gay couple, husband and wife who came out of the gay lifestyle. And they heard me share, and they're like, and what else, Victor? And I was like, what do you mean, what else? They're like, no, this, and this doesn't happen. Where's the rest of it? I got so offended, and then I felt vulnerable, and then I felt the Holy Spirit say, you can share. And I just started pouring it out. And God used them and in my life to say, Victor, just be real. Quit worrying.
Right.
Because I'm like, first of all, people aren't going to believe me. Christians aren't going to believe how much I've suffered because everybody's living their little perfect lives, which is not the truth. Everybody suffers, varying degrees. But it was out of that I shared at a youth prison, and we saw a number of kids turn to Christ.
I love.
And then
I love
because I
going
knew
to
the
jail.
kids in prison, they'll believe me. I mean, they're
Absolutely.
trafficked, hurt, abused, all of
Yeah.
it. And from there, it just grew, right, babe? How would you say the mystery came?
Well, that is how it started. I think the Lord brought us from Hawaii. We were suffering in Hawaii, and
Oh, of course. What island were you on?
we were on Oahu. It was for 6 years. It was
I
miserable.
love that place.
It's a joke. Aloha, brothers.
Yeah, it is. And we loved
Shave
it.
ice, no. Spam
But
musubi.
interesting. Yes, you've been there.
She knows.
So here's an interesting thing because I know you want to talk about trauma, and Victor was later in our married life, he was diagnosed with bipolar because his childhood he had stuffed down so far it started coming up, so his behavior started mimicking symptoms of bipolar. So he was put on medicine, and therapists tried to work with him and figure out what's going on with him. So when he started going into the youth prisons, he started talking with other kids who high risk behavior. They also have had trauma. And this is the reason why they're in there, because they can't get any traction. So
Right.
actually, that was when Victor's healing really began.
Because I started getting triggered. And
He
I
was
couldn't get
getting
it back under
triggered, listening
control.
to other kids' stories. And 99% of these kids have been sexually abused.
Yeah.
For sure, the young girls, but the men too. So
Mm.
this is when this whole God was using this to start this whole different branch of the ministry. Now it's not just incarcerated youth, but now it's people who suffer trauma. And
Which is everyone.
God, everyone, because we're part of the human race, and it's a fallen
Yeah.
race. So
Right.
that's how God started us in this trauma field. So with the trauma, I mean, we were visiting these kids and, trying to see past their offense, because God does. But if you can see past why they did this and understand and try to teach other people, educate people, this is what children can do when they're suffering from trauma, PTSD. It's not just military, right? It's children, and what do they do with it? So that was a connection that we were seeing time and time again with these youth. And then Victor got healed. I would say 90% he's healed, right? It's a lifetime process. But God used that to help us create 2 films on trauma. And you said you watched it, Triggered 2.
Yes. Can you guys name the films? Triggered 2. And
Triggered 2.
there's another one, the Victor Marx story, right?
Victor Marx story is
Is that
Victor's
correct?
story. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that Victor Marx story was made first, and then the Triggered 2, because we wanted to help educate people that it's not just military and first responders who suffer from PTSD, it's everyone. So the other version of the Triggered is Triggered Military.
It's,
And right now,
it's so good.
Yeah, right now, people listening, they're going, oh, wait, maybe I want to watch this. And you can just go to our website. It's free.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
VictorMarx.com, or go to YouTube to watch my story or Triggered. My story is in 15 languages. And
wow. Okay. You know what,
been
you
really
guys,
great.
it's really been an honor. I can talk to you guys all day long. And I know everyone watching and listening probably feels the same way. The time went by like this. So thank you, Victor and Eileen. All things possible, because with God, all things are possible. And Jesus can heal the deepest trauma and turn us into warriors for him, can't he? Would you please consider partnering with us monthly, or just send us a one-time donation? Just go to our website at hookersforjesus.net and click on donate. And listen, your donation goes to a good cause, and it's tax deductible. Thank you so much.